Greetings, I am Lies and I use she, her.
And I am Scandal, and I use they, them.
And let's play a game together! Woo! Alrighty, your friend. I do not have my accent. Hang on a second.
Hello, this is what you have today? Your friend practices magic?
Sorry. Your friend practices magic.
There's a lot of good...
Yes,
Yes, these things are his strong suit. Locks, barriers, protections.
So when you say he practices magic, you mean...
Please tell me...
He specifically practices go the fuck away.
Yes, or like basically, I'm good at putting up walls.
Yes.
But I was gonna say also at the same time, like, so he's gonna having boundaries.
He does?
I really hope, like, that actually applies to his route.
That would be great. Finally, like, we have to discuss boundaries because I has them.
Uh-huh.
And or I will put them in place.
And they will be there, and you will not fuck with me.
And you will have, I will express my limits clearly. Actions?
Some of these are new.
What is this? Holy shit. A hot whisper of magic rushes around our ankles, making me shiver in my wet clothes.
You either do or do not notice. Because you're going like, oh, your friend practices magic. So apparently we've observed something that our character has not decided to describe what is to us, the audience.
Yeah, that was I was going. I don't think at the end of the last episode there was any like a indicator of I see/feel/detect magic or magical things. I see charms, I see runes, I see stuffs.
Yeah.
I feel things.
Okay, so part of the reason also I bring it up here, even though I know it's a little early on in the episode, is just because I'm like, because when we ended last time, I was like, okay, so sometimes you blurt something out before you realize you're observing something. But then I was expecting then for your character to go, I observe a thing. And I guess maybe the hot rush of magic at your footies is the thing.
But also, like, it's nice if you have an indicator beforehand.
Yeah.
As soon as it's open, we stumble through the door and into the dark.
Wait,
had we started opening the door?
Wait, what? We just opened the fucking door? Asra just walks the fuck in without knocking?
Very comfortable.
You know,
extremely
I mean, that's
familiar.
What like...
Deeply. So familiar.
I mean, okay, so I want to at least give Asra a point for going, I did actually introduce myself to the Chamberlain in NADIA'S castle. But for some fucking reason, every single one of the guards went, I heard nothing for drama reasons. Because that's... Wow.
That's fine.
Because that still blows my brain. But I'm like, okay, so at least I give Asra credit for going, what I did was this thing. Even if I was an edgelord about, like, showing how I appeared to you, I at least announced myself, right? And I was let in. It wasn't like I just ran inside.
Yes.
But I'm like, so now you're saying that Asra is going to just walk into people's space?
They're clearly very familiar with each other. And also, he seems to be undoing the wards as he's going, yeah, he does magic, and this one's new.
Oh, wow, this one's new? I mean, yeah, I'm like, that just seems rude.
And into the dark. The air is still and even colder inside.
It's very wet.
The ceiling is natural in form. It's hard to make out any furnishings. I think it's very dark. Like, the picture has light, but I think it's very dark. Also, again, if the roots do come through the broken ceiling, as you can see, like, several places where it's cracked open, soaking wet. It's colder inside and it's extremely damp.
Moist.
Asra casts an impressive orb of light that illuminates a modest single room, shrinking it to surround us.
Okay.
We only us in the orb of light.
Is that your teeth, Jatling? Let's get a log into the fireplace.
I crouch before the hearth. There's a single log, leaning on its side.
Okay, that's so passive-aggressive. Let us do this thing, and by us, I mean you. But I won't tell you, you just jump to do it because you're just fulfilling the expectations. I'm also like, if the other person is that cold, if it were me, I'd be like, oh my god, we should get this thing. I'm going to go do it. Because my friend is clearly colder than me.
Or hold on, let me warm you up. Let me stoke the fire. I also still deeply wonder about this kettle. And how the hell you open it without it just falling?
I know.
And if it's perfectly round, can you set it on a surface? Is there a stand for it somewhere? Because, like, it looks like it's like a pressure cooker, the way the lid is attached. And so it's not open. It's like a wrecking ball. Came in like a wrecking ball! I say Muriel's the wrecking ball.
Yeah, Muriel is the wrecking ball.
Anyway, I would love to know the mechanics of that piece of cookware.
Oh, I should probably also clarify one of the reasons Okay, so my comment about I hope that Asra or that Muriel actually established boundaries was kind of sarcastic, because based on our experience with him in premium scenes in the original beginning that we played, the prologue. Thank you. I forgot what the word was.
It's okay.
And then also in like the new updated one where we did actually do a premium thing, I was a little bit like,
there's still a lot
you do not seem like you have very good boundaries at all, and your character even seems disinclined to sort of follow them.
He seems very like, especially in the regular prologue, he seems very like, I expect the magic that makes you forget to give boundaries for me, so I don't ever have to set boundaries.
Right. Which is interesting, is especially if they're going to say in this route specifically that actually what he's good at is this thing, which also makes me very angry then about NADIA'S route, because if he's really good about, wards and locks and taking care of areas, then why the fuck did we get possessed? Sorry, I'm fine.
Why
that
can everyone
so
just walk into his house?
Also, why does everybody, I'm still just like, this is the rudest goddamn thing.
There's a single log leaning on its side, dusty and forgotten.
Ha. Why would you like to light it? I found it, so I might as well light it, Asra says from somewhere in the other part of the room.
Also, I'm going, okay.
Asra, you're not helping
We don't
me.
seem to use magic without him prompting it in this one, which is a very a caretaker, parent response thing.
So like I said, in the last one, Asra seems completely unable to get out of the role despite, and again, that can happen, which again can equal a very interesting character thing. But if that is actively the thing that he wants, and he states that is his goal, he seems to be doing nothing in order to get out of it. Even if it's a, shit, you decide what you want to do with it, I should stop directing you.
I say, well, if we can perceive completely what state he is in, as we do sometimes of going, he is doing, feeling, being this, we should be able to notice if he's like, I don't actually want to be directing you all the time. That is a habit thing.
Also, okay, so as somebody who has actually, so this tends to be a behavior that I have noticed in people who are traumatized or abused. I have childhood PTSD. So one characteristic you can observe with some people is that they're hyper aware of your emotions. So the only explanation I have for Kohai being so ridiculously I can read your emotions, or at least they think they can, because that's another thing that sometimes you forget when you're a little kid. You
don't realize you're not always correct.
Yes, because complex human experiences, right? You don't have all the information, but you tend to, on average, at least know how to not be in the way. So Kohai going, all these things that I'm going to jump to conclusions about very strongly suggests to me some level of
hyper-attentiveness to emotion that would have been caused by something.
Yes.
That would have been caused either by a continual experience or
even just neglect. So sometimes you can literally have basically an overemphasis on...
As I said, continual experience.
Yeah.
So whatever direction
and based
or
on
shape it may have
Asra's
taken.
lack of connection with you, based on even the other routes and this one, since he's not very good at communicating with you, you have basically worked yourself into hyper overdrive of trying to figure out what he is about, so that you don't go crazy.
Ask, and you know he won't answer, so you have to figure it out.
That sounds awful.
That sounds like a lot of work.
That sounds stressful. I don't like it.
Asra lays the log in the hearth and presents it to me.
I found the log. He take the log. He asked if you... I'm sorry, it's fine.
So I think he really is very much just habitually in the caretaker role.
Yes.
I doubt he's ever sort of... Based on the fact that everyone in this game seems very isolated... that we've met so far, even if they're in, theoretical groups, I would tend to say he's probably never, nurtured, raised, or, rehabilitated anybody else. Probably just you. And so he's probably having a very hard time, knowing, again, what kind of boundaries there should be, when it's okay to back off, whether you're smothering or just being supportive, any of those things.
I would say that that's rather indicative, considering the fact that also he manipulated Julian basically into a sort of another relationship with him, where he was also hyper it's just very controlling.
I was gonna say, I would also tend to say that with no input, no friends, no connections, he would have no support, and so it'd be very hard to decide what you're doing.
Yeah.
A smile tickles the corner of my mouth as I move my hand over it. On the first try, it sparks and catches. We settle as close as possible to the growing blaze.
Okay, but you have a log. As somebody who used to actively make a lot of fires, particularly like where I was basically like, I am so fucking cold. Like,
one log does not necessarily last very long.
No, and I was also going to say, just because you have a spark does not have like a log catch. And also, a lot of times, even when you have a spark, if you're not careful, especially since Muriel's cabin is 1, very humid, and 2, extremely damp, I don't know how long that log would stay lit.
The hearth is nice and dry. Magic fire. Not just, I created a natural spark, but magic fire.
Yeah,
okay?
but the thing is also not. Because you have to consider that the spark itself is the magic, but once it becomes a fire, that's no longer under your control.
Are you sure? Do we know
didn't
that?
say that!
It hasn't been specified either way. It hasn't been specified whether or not this is a
I would like to know.
magical spark.
Because of the
that guarantees a steady blaze.
But see, do you understand why I'm saying that, though? Because then why would you have a log? Then you should just have a fire.
Because you don't need fuel. What if you need fuel, but it's guaranteed to burn all the fuel?
That's the thing, though. I'm saying, like, I don't know how this world works, because it seems like you need some component.
Nope, you don't get to
know.
know.
You are required to have something to turn something else into, but you have to keep going, because otherwise it disappears.
You get to know nothing.
Because, like, the spring goes away, and the water stopped being water in the little container. Like, it's not literally magical in that way.
It doesn't seem like it. It seems like it's very temporary. On the other hand, they're completely different spells, and as far as we can tell, they all work totally differently.
Are you wondering who this friend is that you've never heard of until now?
I should be.
It's complicated, but he's under a spell. A lot like you.
Am I under a spell? Have we talked about this before?
Holy shit, they fucking just literally say it.
That's great. That's really cool. I've never heard that before.
Like, I don't know, this thing is it's a thing that basically when like it just says it to begin with. This is also like the most flat out, like straight answer.
The most direct thing about your main character's experience. It's amazing.
I don't like you. Instead of forgetting, is forgotten. Wait, what?
So
our spell causes
us,
forgetting?
So I was going to say, apparently the spell on us causes us not to remember things. So what he has indicated is the reason we don't have memories, and I don't think it's continual forgetting. I think it's the past you do not remember is there by a spell.
But I'm like, you died. I'm sorry.
We don't know that, and this room hasn't said that.
No, but like, okay, so I'm using the other routes because the whole brain hurts. I'm going like, well, you've said that basically in the other routes because we've had the trauma of death, and there's like, okay, I'm fine. It hurts me.
As far as I can tell, there's a lot of differences in going, you cannot think of this as the same story told from a different perspective. It's just a different story with similar components.
Which is sad because not even the characters seem to be sort of intact. Anyway, he's forgotten. Nobody remembers meeting him.
Except you?
So you'll be meeting him for the first time. Again. I'm glad. He's my oldest friend.
Like he's the oldest, or you've had him the
And
longest?
I'm blushing like crazy.
There is a little bit of a blush.
But based on what we've seen in NADIA'S route...
That's fine.
That's fine.
My heart stutters. He wants to introduce me to his oldest friend? I didn't know he had any friends at all. And if this one is his oldest, it suggests he has more other friends.
Do you know what I also think is interesting? Like, they're actually even just being like, I have other relationships.
Yeah, they're suggesting he has multiple friends. And not that Nadia just doesn't remember him and they could rebuild a relationship, but like do you consider Nadia a friend if she doesn't know who you are? So I'm hoping not when you say friends. Like, these are current active friends. I would love to meet his other friends. And also, especially
the fact of whatever you did to Julian, who knows? But I'm just like, the thing, that's so interesting. But also, like, there's literally an important part where it's like, hi, this person is important to me and has been a large part of my life. I would like you to meet them. No other fucking character has really done that. Like, Nadia has kind of introduced Portia, but not Julian is like, I am alone, I have no relationships, and there wasn't really a huge, like...
It was Basilinka finds out you're there, and he's like, oh, sorry for crushing your flower bed.
Yeah, like, and it's not really a
introduction so much, it's a, who's this?
There's something that I'm like, that is way more intimate, though, than some of the others, and that bothers me that and I understand not everybody does it the same, and that's fine, but I'm also just like, okay, so one thing again I don't like about the Arcana that I realize more and more and more, as we've definitely expressed it before, is the fact that there is such isolation. These characters do feel very much like they're just in a bubble of their own existence. They have no other friends, they had no other life, no other hobbies really, and you never really get even like introduced to who they are as complex characters, as it were. Asra doesn't really talk about what he likes to do or what he doesn't like to do. He doesn't talk about, gossip in the city. You don't talk about this. Like, there's not
also
any extensive...
Interestingly, if he's been teaching you everything, and he actually is actively teaching it to you, as opposed to the interpretation that we got with Nerd of you are just a really aware sponge, because he never tells you anything, so you just pick it all up by, like, sight and inference. I was gonna say, if he's actually actively been teaching you things, he should be more engaged with that, because it would be a habit, just like being in charge of you.
I was about to say, based on even what I can tell, because, okay, so I've seen some parents who deeply dislike their own kids, but they, mask it relatively well. I won't say it's always successful at all, because kids are far more aware, I think, than most people ever give them credit for. But there's usually an experience where you're watching basically the adult, and the adult is just kind of used to the kid being there. They don't like them being there, but they just go, I include them just because they're around.
Because it is a part of my environment.
Exactly. And that's kind of what I've always felt like the other routes sort of was we're going like, for some reason, even though Asra's like, I'm in love with you from the prologue, to suddenly going, it's okay, I'm Dad. I'll just sort of weirdly include you, but also like strangely not include you, feels exactly like some of the sort of abusive, neglectful parents that I'm very much used to in that way.
Anyway, I like the initial part of going, this is, again, it's funny, the contrast between how direct he is compared to the other characters, and also how completely evasive and cagey he is.
Yes.
His oldest friend. I'm happy, I'm nervous. I don't think I would be nervous.
Again, I think that thing going like, Asra's been testing me, and Asra is now rewarding me. Oldest friend, and he's blushing. You'd be like, oh,
that's great. This makes me happy.
Great. This makes me very happy.
I'm happy.
Why am I? I want you to hurry up and become friends too.
But what if I cannot remember him? How will we be friends?
What is shy? We might need to get him used to the idea of 3 people in the room first. That sounds like that.
You mean like king introvert? Like he cannot handle groups of people at all? He sounds, honestly,
like I said, I'd be like, whoa, that doesn't sound like you are shy. That sounds like you are like destroyed emotionally, like terrified.
Where he lives and how far away it is from everything, and there's not even a path to it. Perhaps he is more like a hermit, and thereby maybe he does not like people, or is not comfortable about them and prefers his space.
Maybe.
Anyway. He leans languidly into my side, sighing deeply, his wet hair licking at my ear. I feel it's...
Okay, I always think of licking as like an active thing. So the concept of hair...
continuing to move and tap against you?
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why you don't say licking hair, because otherwise, like, licking is a little bit too active. So I'd be like tickling.
Instead, or you could say licks into me. Could be a thing, but if you say...
or just flick.
Licking.
Like, I don't know, like, licking to me is always much more, again, animate object versus inanimate object. This is true. You've gotten me to open up. If anyone can get him to open up, it's you. See?
What? Have I gotten you to open up?
I was like...
I know you know the way. This is the only way I've ever known you.
Hi, this is who you are, Asra.
So...
I got nothing. Oh, wow, look at all this praise. This is great.
And I cannot contrast you to many other people, because I don't actually have any friends except for like strong, warm acquaintance Pumpkinbird Seller, because we never hang out or do anything other than basically business and casual visiting in his workplace. Yeah.
It's you.
It's you.
Anyway, his name is Muriel.
Muriel. I taste the name out.
Whoa.
More licking.
Okay, so...
not I try it on my tongue.
Not I try it out, I taste it out. Okay, so what are the... okay, sorry, I'm picking at a lot of things, because sometimes the language is really weird, like the choices in here. So I was just like, no, I just want it to sound more interesting.
I say, there is some feeling of like short, like small, like aggressive insertions of purple prose, of this needs to sound sort of romanticized.
And part of the thing with I taste the name out is very much a romantic erotic trope I'm used to. So I'm like... Are you looking forward to trying to seduce Muriel
I've got that one too of going,
with you with
this is,
Asra?
when I've heard of that before, it's really the I taste the name on my tongue kind of thing. And it's like, it's a sexual response.
Yeah.
In books that I've seen it, where it's
I'm like, that is erotica, which is fine, this is a romance, but also I'm like, you said
not with Muriel?
this was for kids, so I also am entertained. Like, I'm not saying that, okay, so...
I don't think this is for kids. I think it
No.
includes kids.
Yes, like, it's just sort of one of those things where you're like, I would, like, how are you going to avoid this? Also, like, it's the same thing at a library. You cannot stop kids from going to the adult section or the adult romance section or any of that stuff, because that's not how libraries work. They're not there to close off information. The idea is to be like, you have all this access, but then to foster a relationship with the adults who are there and the adults who are in your life, to encourage you to ask questions and to know that you will be in a safe, welcoming environment to do so.
Where you can ask about all kinds of interesting things. And librarians get some questions, let me tell you.
They do. I actually knew someone who was a librarian where they were kind of talking about some of the questions they've gotten, and they were really surprised, and I was just like, you're the only other probably adult who actually talks to them, even like politely.
I do
remember. Sometimes they go, I am comfortable, and I will just blab everything at you because I have no one else to talk to.
I say, for myself and my friends as children, you really didn't get to talk to the adults about stuff you wanted to know. You had to talk about stuff they were interested in.
Yes.
And I got really good at talking to adults because that was mostly the people I was around as a kid, because once my mom left my dad, it really was an experience of, we didn't know anyone else with kids when she moved back to her parents' house.
Right.
And so she was around adults, and so I was around adults. And also, like, I don't make friends easily, so Anyway, Asra watches carefully as I let it echo in my mind. He moves to sit face to face with me and reaches for my hands, blowing softly on my fingertips to warm them.
Swinging any beds?
No, I don't think so. Since
okay, so
I didn't indicate that I had any familiarity at all, deciding here is interesting. This actually feels like a completely clean character choice, which is different than what I've experienced with the rest of it, of going, you get to decide whether your character remembers or not with no information, because the character said, your protag doesn't indicate anything of, yes, it's familiar, that sounds, like it stirs up emotion in me at something.
So one of the things actually I was even going to say about that is that also this question feels unusual. There's potentially a lot of weight loaded into this. So considering that not all the choices in this game, so spoilers, so you don't have to worry about all of them, but many of them basically determine
where you end up.
Right? So I'm going like, on a meta level, this is very frustrating. If that makes sense.
Going, does this matter?
Yeah, going like, how does this matter? And then in the way of like, so how does that affect basically my outcome? You go, why is one question then weighted, like one response weighted potentially as basically more positive than negative? So I'm going like, where does that leave you? So sometimes I get so torn about the choices that we have in here, because I'm like, when we've had very natural responses to things of being like, based on all the information you've given us and the amount of like character you have basically presented us with, these are all the only responses we can really think of based on situation, circumstances, and we try to walk through them. And part of the reason is because it doesn't feel like natural, like, it doesn't feel as natural as I want it to. And again, that thing of going, it doesn't feel like a novel or a very well-developed novel, if that makes sense. Like, there's not enough for you to work from. So we're constantly like going, well, I'm trying not to metagame this.
See, and I feel like having designed Kohai the way I did, it's really easy for me to not think about the weight of the choice, and just kind of go, how does Kohai feel? No. In this case, I think there would also be a strong no, because unfortunately, this is a part I can't avoid. I know that Muriel was the character in their dream.
Which is also why I'm saying meta level, that drive you crazy.
Even without playing the other routes I would, though, because they showed his name. I just say, and there's no reason, because Kohai describes in the dream this strange figure, unknown person, but is named in the text for the reader, Muriel. So the reader
but see, the thing is then that becomes the question. Is that meta for the reader, or is that for the character? Because the character recognizes them, but doesn't have to name them, because sometimes you go, oh, I know who that is, but it's sort of a just...
And so then I would have to go... Does Kohai actually know that name and in their dream recognized who that was, even though when they woke up, they're like, what was that all about? And made no statement of any kind of, I know this person, or it was, from, something that I'm familiar with, rather than just a figure in my dream.
Right.
So I would tend to say no. Kohai would not have any recollection at all based on the reaction to their own dreams and the fact that we didn't get any indicator here that they were connected to the name.
But do you see what I mean, though, where I'm like, I get really confused because you're like, who
Is
was that for? Because
Right.
also sometimes, I hate to say it,
Sometimes
I'm pretty
we get
sure.
question marks.
Sometimes we get question marks, but most of the time we don't. Even to characters where I'm like, who the fuck is this person? And even your character doesn't know. And we've been like, what the hell?
Why
and
do
then
we
they
have
go,
a name?
yeah, and then it's like, oh yeah, I'm this person, and you want to beat your head into a wall. So I feel like I don't know which one it is. That's why I'm like, I'm frustrated going, was that a mistake? Or was that on purpose? Or was...
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it would be really cool if you did have more consistent question marks until you actually have been introduced to someone or their name has been used. Because it's there sometimes and not other times.
Or again, part of it is the fact that you just know who that person is, and that would be an interesting point of contention. You'd be like, hello, person, and
That's
then...
what I mean. If it's consistent, then you would know if there's a name, it means your character knows.
Yeah.
Period. And so then you wouldn't have to guess.
Yeah, okay, I just misinterpreted.
Consistency.
Alright, so no.
No.
Alright. You must still be on his spell. For now.
You did say it affects everyone.
And also in the other routes, we actually literally need a thing in order to ward it off. But that's okay.
The log is fully engulfed in flame now. I'll be warm soon. But not soon enough.
It's so cold.
So cold.
Yeah.
It's cold in the desert.
I understand that feel.
Being cold here. I burrow against Asra's side. Not interacting with like pulling my clothes around me or trying to lean into his clothes or anything.
Why wouldn't you just take them off? Take your clothes off. Like, he does actually have other layers.
Because this is somebody else's house.
I would still take other layers off. And you can put them in, like, your lap. Or hang them maybe over...
Asra might not care that he's wet. And they're trying not to tell us what we're wearing.
Damn it.
So, if we decide that our character is wearing, like, 17 layers of elaborate scarves and dresses and other things, then yeah, sure, they'd want to take them off and hang them on the fire and just wear more, their underclothes.
Yeah.
But the Arcana is not going to tell you how you're dressed 99% of the time. They only tell you in like 3 cases, indicating that you have a shirt on at one point, indicating you have a skirt on at another point.
I think then pants at another point too.
And pants. And it's not like you are wearing these pants.
Sleeves.
It's like, frequently, like you get interacted with sleeves. So if I mentioned before in other routes, if your character is wearing in your mind a tank top, there are times where it's like this person, touches your sleeve. That shirt doesn't have sleeves, or this happens with your sleeve. So then they're telling you your clothes aren't like that in that scene. Also, in Julian's route, you get the lovely bird hanging from the hem of your shirt.
Which was really fucking
which means
funny.
you are wearing a shirt that is not tucked in.
Nope.
I'm like, upside down birds, upside down corvids are beautiful.
They're hilarious.
They're so beautiful. Freaking lovely.
God.
I kind of want there just to be a hashtag upside down corvid, because they do grab onto things and hang upside down.
They do. They're very playful.
Extremely
they
playful.
really are, actually.
I burrow against Asra's side, relishing his heat through our dripping clothes. He welcomes me under his arm. Also, are we sitting in dirt? Because I did kind of describe this as extremely sparse and such like that.
Moist.
I see that in the picture there are furs in front of the fire, but I also think if you should mention we sit down on a pile of furs.
Yeah.
We just sit down. They're
real. Okay.
We sit down in the void.
I think it's so interesting. Again, I understand sometimes where the stuff doesn't measure up, but I'm also if you go to the work of illustrating it, it was well, it's an idea, and I'm there's nothing wrong with being definite about something.
Why not connect them? You have an illustrator and you have a writer, and you are creating a story together. Why not just directly connect them?
There's nothing wrong with it.
Soon, Faust slides out of his sleeve, languid with the cold, and lays herself out at the edge of the hearth. Hopefully it's a large hearth, which doesn't exist in this picture, because otherwise she would just be way too hot right away.
Yes.
She'd be laying in the coals.
Roasty baby.
Oh, good. I don't think there actually is.
Roast snake.
No!
Careful. Don't get too close.
Thank you, Asra. Hi, Pog. I'm so tired.
She's so cold.
So cold.
Oh, you're very stiff.
I could barely move to get out here next to the worm.
So the thing you need to understand is snakes don't shiver.
No.
So reptiles, they actually have some amount of basically body regulation. It depends on the variety you're talking about. But snakes in particular, so one of the reasons why a lot of reptiles don't is because they literally cannot shiver. So if you don't know what shivering is, I'd be like, shivering is actually a motion your body actually makes trying to warm itself up. It's not just because you're like, oh my god, I'm so cold. It is literally your body trying to save you.
Yeah, trying to counteract the cold and raise your core temperature.
Yes. By making you jiggle.
By friction.
By friction.
And also like upping your your heart rate and such. Like
but that's also why you'll usually find a lot of snakes in particular, basically in sunlight. That's how they manage their temperature, is by using light.
And warmth. Just wherever it's like...
But the thing is, I'm saying, like, naturally, though, you usually don't have a lot
You usually get warmth from light, but at the same time.
I mean, there are volcanic snakes, I know that, but...
Asra's smile is resplendent in the firelight. His gaze lands on me, glimmering through his dripping hair.
Because I'm just looking up at him. I'm not what... How do you know when to look up? It's fine. That looks nice. I wish I could do the same, but I need more wood. That log is going to burn out fast.
But we're going to have to find out how fast
in the next one. Oh my god.
I appreciate that there's a mention of that, though, because it is like, one log does not a very long fire make. And it can be, like, it could have been a huge log. Muriel's pretty big. Could have been gigantic. Maybe the reason he put the log in for you is because he knew you would not be able to lift it.
Maybe.
It doesn't mention that we have any awareness. In this one, I don't think we have any awareness of our own strength.
I've actually noticed that. Like, we have no mention of clumsiness at all, unlike, the prologue is insane of, like, I'm clumsy, I whack things, I run into things.
I'm not athletic at all.
I have no athleticism. And then it sort of went away in NADIA'S route. And then, like, it was really prominent in Julian's. Like, I still cannot, like, my brain is just like, yeah, I think Julian's is actually the closest to basically a, quote, tropey romance, much more so than the other two characters, which is really interesting.
I also have this experience just going, why not just tell the same story from different sides? And I get, again, you can be just doing an AU. If the character makes this choice instead of this choice, it actually changes all of these other things. But it also suggests if everybody has done different things up until this point, it suggests you made different choices in the past as well. And so it'd be really nice to know what the distinctions are. Sort of like when I make an alternate universe version of my own role-playing characters, I distinguish what the change is and at what point it happened in their life. Like in the case of, I'll just use a really dramatic one, where I have a literal god, non-religious, in the sense of a character. I say, and there's an AU where he's a normal human. But it's not like he was turned into a normal human. It's like his personality as it maintains, and some of the attributes that physically affect the way people react to him without being powerful, just being, naturally present, exist. And then you have to go, who is he? Who did he become? So knowing what the thing that's changed is and when it was changed really helps to figure out why the other things in your environment are different. However, in the case of your protag here, your main character, I would tend to argue if the change is who you are attracted to, if the difference is who you are attracted to in the prologue, it shouldn't change any of their backstories. It should only change events from the point at which you made a different choice. And so if you learned horseback riding in the past, you should still have learned that. If Nadia has been in a coma for 3 years, she still should have been that. It should all be the same, except for, post the area of change.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, and I agree with my friend, but also, like, so mentioning the thing about AUs, what's also really important is it allows you to decide who actually even that character is and what actually makes them who they are.
What are their
Is it actually just them being a god and being all-powerful or whatever it is, or basically being twinked up to hell, if we're using D&D terms of, like, no one can kick my... Oh, munchkining, excuse me.
Yes,
and I'm like, I think twinking is...
It's more for... That's MMORPGs. That's WoW and EverQuest and stuff. Anyways, I was going to say, it's one of those things where... what is the core of your character as a person, and it's a cool thing to explore if you change their circumstances and go, who are they when things are like
and
this?
then also going, what do I need to change even possibly about my setting in order to maintain that character's personality? Because if it is, like for me, and that's why I'm like, if you cannot tell that that's the same character, a lot of times I just go, then you don't know what their personality is. It's just basically, here's a costume piece.
I was like, you go back to Rise of the Guardians and go, you've got to find your center. What's the character's center? And then they operate from that.
Exactly. Anyway, so thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. If you like what we do, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and please share the video if you can. Doing any of those things actually helps us a lot in regards to the YouTube algorithm. It would be awesome if you did so. Please also feel free to go check out our Ko-Fi, Patreon, and our Twitch. There are links in the description down below. We'd love to see you there. And I have been Scandal.
Additionally, I don't know if some of you are sharing or if the algorithm is just helping us out or you're putting more likes on the video, which I had noticed. But we've gotten a few more subscribers and it's really cool. Yeah. So thank you for any interactions you've been doing. We appreciate it. And I have been Liz. And it was great playing with you. Bye!